intro song, Laura.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's turned into an institution by now. Have it every single episode, basically.
Rumor has it Tom had some music queued up for us.
Yeah, I'd like to use it.
I haven't heard much about it. Project Ion Podcast, Sunday, August 11th,
2019.
2019. There are three of us here today. Kind of an impromptu show today.
Yep.
Pulling stuff together where we can. We've had some illnesses and absences, and we've got a long streak without a show. So
yeah. Glad to be back
together.
on the saddle, though.
Indeed.
We got Laura here with us
Yay.
this evening or this
Woohoo.
afternoon. How are you doing, Laura?
Just great.
How many have you been on?
This
couple.
might be number 3, I think.
I know we've never been on together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pleasure.
You filled in during a snowstorm or something like that, as I recall.
Yeah, and
Laura.
then I had one with the teachers.
Oh, yeah, the teacher's
We had a
one.
teacher podcast.
Our worst viewed episode.
Oh, no.
The deep dive into differentiation or something like that.
Kind of a niche subject, I would think. Speaking of teaching, there are two of us here that are teachers. When do your classes start?
We have freshman orientation on the 23rd, and everyone else starts the following Monday.
Freshman orientation. Orientation sounds like college stuff. Are they doing that at the high school now? What is that?
Well, just the freshmen come for a full day, and they get to meet all the teachers and do different activities and run through their schedule a few times and kind of get used to the high school before everyone else is there. Eases a little anxiety.
I suppose.
I don't think they had that when I was a kid.
No, I
No,
remember.
this is
Like,
only the
here's your
3rd or 4th
schedule.
year.
Don't get beat up.
Right. Or lost.
Right? Yep.
Here's a map.
I was just dodging bullets and punches for my whole first week of school.
So you'd see all the freshmen walking around with their maps in front of their face,
Yep.
trying to make it to Civics 101.
Oh, yeah. I think maybe when I was like 8th grade, I want to say they took us over the high school at the end of the year
Oh, yeah.
for like a quick walk around thing or something. And you just like, all the upperclassmen would be licking their lips like, ugh.
I remember that trip well. It was the coolest thing. That was when I was down with the clown, listening to ICP. And there was this big ICP mural on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was like a friendly, friendly picture to see.
Whoop, whoop.
Yep.
Right?
Indeed. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. They got ICP on the walls at the high school.
When's ILCC starting up?
Next week is kind of our get back in the saddle type stuff. So we do, I guess there's an orientation, but like an in-service and all that stuff. So yeah, and then assessment's big this year, of course. We have
Okay.
to get all of our state assessment stuff done and program outcomes and course outcomes and all that fun stuff.
Right.
So we just had a changing of the dean, so they're trying to kind of get back on track as far as that goes.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
and then classes start, I guess, next week.
Nice.
Move-in date's 19th.
And how many years
Yeah.
have you been out there now?
Like 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where is the time
It does
gone?
not seem like that long.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, it feels like maybe this could be year 4 for
I was
you.
going to say 4 or
Yeah.
5. Yep. Ugh.
Well, Laura, you've been teaching for over 10 now, haven't you?
Yeah, this will be the start of my 12th years.
Wow.
Gasp. How many more till you can retire? 23?
A lot.
I'll check the IPers for us. Get
Yeah.
IPers under control. So what's your favorite class to teach?
Well, I don't teach any anymore because I'm the instructional coach.
You're a teacher who doesn't teach?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yep, I'm out of the
Perplexing.
classroom full time and I work with teachers.
Okay.
But prior to that, my favorite subject to teach was calculus.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. So instructional coach, is that anything like what Jenny Nichols does?
No, she was the tech integrationalist.
Okay.
So she just worked with tech.
Oh.
And I do like all aspects of teaching. So if they feel like they want to improve their classroom behavior, we can work on strategies to do that or more engaging lessons and things like that.
Do you have
Okay.
any enforceable authority to make teachers respond to your directives or anything like that?
No.
Dang it.
You can't make him listen. You can't put him in the corner.
Yeah. If you don't do this, you're on double secret probation.
Right. Okay. Mitchell's is on my advisory committee. That's why I'm kind of familiar with what she does out there.
Yeah, but her job is changing. But
Yeah.
that's maybe a
Got that impression.
topic for another day.
Mm-hmm. Is the reason for some of the changes, like the instructional coach deal and some of the other positions? I mean, because it sort of seems like to me what would have been at one point in time under the purview of like an administrative position, it'd be like a part of what they were responsible for. Is it because the administrative jobs are changing in nature generally that it would stretch somebody too thin, so you'd need more hands on deck, so to speak, or where's that coming from?
I don't know, but I mean, I suppose the admin positions have changed a little bit, but I think it's more just an extra support because so many teachers leave the profession, and not just for money, but just lack of support. And really, I mean, it's hard for a teacher to go to their principal, the person responsible for being able to keep them around, and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this, and then admitting fault, or
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you're a friendly face kind of thing.
Right. It's just
Right. Yeah.
peer to go to who has no say whatsoever in being able to terminate their position.
Yeah. That's true. There are a lot of schools doing that.
Yeah, the state of Iowa does a TLC grant, so once you apply for it, then they pay teachers extra to be in leadership positions. There's quite a few. I would say most districts do it.
Do you miss being in the classroom with the younger folks?
I do, yeah. I'm probably only going to do this for another year or two, and then
So
get
you
back
can
in the
control
classroom.
when you're in and out.
Yeah,
to
I'm
some
guaranteed a job, just a matter of where the opening is.
Got
So I'm hoping to slide in when the high school opening exists. But I still have seniority, so if there's not a position, I'm guessing I boot someone out. So
Good. Nothing like seniority.
Yeah.
Good thing to have. Well, should we
Very
get into
good.
some material? We got a
Sure.
full deck of cards
Yeah.
here today. So,
Sounds good.
this first video is a clip from it's called "What a Democratic Socialist Convention is Like." I tweeted full disclosure, I tweeted this video to the Grimm's boys a few days ago, I think when it first started to crop up, and it's pretty funny.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just
All
want
right,
to say
pause. So this is going to take us like hours to get through. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So just so people know, point of privilege, meaning like I have some privilege and I need to interrupt because I need to express it. And he said his pronouns are what? They?
He, him. I think he said he, him.
So that's this new speak for how you want to be identified as whenever you're talking in in places like this. Normal people don't use that language, but they feel privileged to do so.
right, can I say something about that?
Yes.
I don't know where I was at. At my last teacher PD thing this past week, and one of the teachers there was part of the team that writes the Iowa assessments, the written part or the reading part of the Iowa assessments. And she said it was a long task because they can't use she or he. So when they're writing like a passage to read, like it's not grammatically correct because they have to use they, because they can't use she for a girl or he for a guy because of all those. Yeah, so everything they write is not even grammatically correct.
And so, as we'll see, how do you get anything done with this level of SJW pretentiousness?
Well, yeah, it seems to be, that was just what I was going to remark on, is that the format here seems to be that at any point the speaker up at the podium can be interrupted.
Yep.
And you can address the entire audience here and say, hey, I have something that's unique to me, and everybody needs to stop what they're doing and cater to my problem.
Exactly. And with the test thing, growing up, I wasn't super aware of this sort of talk, but like, yeah, I could see where you don't want all the examples to be he said, said he. You want to vary it a little bit to just mix it up. Not everything be he or she. Just mix it. But to take it to this level is obviously a little extreme. But anyway.
Yeah, I'll say. Wait, okay, can I back this up a little bit because there's kind of some. The guy that's talking here is right where my cursor is, and you can see the microphone. And when he says guys, pink-haired person here gets a little upset. And I'll see if we can back it up and you can see it a little bit better, maybe.
First of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus.
Can you back it up just a little bit? I'm watching hands, like next to this person who stood up there. There's like some hands being waved in the air. And I heard that means something, but I just wanted to make sure other people are doing it too.
Let's take this back to...
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him.
So pink-haired person is shaking their fist after he, him is saying guys to address, the whole group here.
Just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very...
But yeah, this is I think, a substitute for applause because of the... it's too noisy.
Too triggering, too jarring. It reminds me of the beatniks, how they used to snap their fingers.
Well, I thought that's what the
applaud.
SJW applause was.
That's too extreme.
Was snapping, but that's too much.
Some people probably can't snap.
So
everyone can do this.
Not everybody has hands and can't snap.
That's pretty ableist of this group. I mean, don't you think?
I agree.
Very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the...
Have we reached the point where the insanity is such where it's just like worthy of being mocked yet? I mean, we've got to be there.
Like, is this for real? Like, this
yeah,
I'm pretty
exactly.
sure. And we have to ask ourselves those questions. Is this real?
It appears to be like a skit from Saturday Night Live or something.
Yeah. No, this is like...
satire.
But it's not. It's real.
This is real. This is what a democratic socialist convention is like.
The chatter to a minimum. It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade. Okay.
Thank you, comrade.
Again.
So, not 2 seconds in, back to her speech.
Name, chapter, pronoun.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
Gendered language.
Gendered language referring to when he said guys.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right.
Yeah. When I talk to a group of, say, I have a classroom full of female students, I'll try not to use guys because it's just weird. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes sense. I'll say gals or ladies or something. But
sure.
If it's mixed, yeah, I think guys is appropriate.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Or that, yeah.
But I suppose that would be...
Yeah, you can't even say ladies and gentlemen
that would be
anymore.
Non-inclusive, because what about the non-binary people?
Right. Can you just say, hey, y'all?
Hey, y'all.
I guess.
That's what we're stuck with?
Yeah, I could go back to the deep south, and there, I mean... y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, like... labored breathing and
he rushed up. I mean, it rushed up there.
Quick point of privilege.
Never said his pronouns, so I don't know how to. But
right.
He was rushing up to the podium to speak. Of course, he's out of breath.
Yeah, but he had to go from here roughly to there.
Oh, that was who was speaking?
Yeah.
Quick point of privilege once again. Quick point of privilege once again. Hi, James Jackson, Sacramento DSA, he, him. I have already asked people to be mindful of the chatter of their comrades who are sensitive to sensory overload, and that goes double for the heckling and the hissing. It is also triggering to my anxiety. Like, the be comradely isn't just for, like, let's keep things civil or whatever. It's so that people aren't going to get triggered and so that it doesn't affect their performance as a delegate, okay? Your need to express yourself is important, but your need to express yourself should not trump or Like, I see.
Ah, you made the mistake there.
Yeah.
We all caught it, right? Should not trump.
Said the dirty word.
Ultimate triggering.
Yep.
Right, at my teacher thing that I was at too, we have like these 6 trumps of education, so like movement, trump, sitting.
Okay.
There's a group of teachers that changed the word trumps to like surpasses, just
Oh,
so
that's
they wouldn't
great.
have to say it.
Oh, love it.
It's like Voldemort in Harry Potter.
You
know
cannot
what?
be named.
Yeah. When all the wizards are so afraid of saying Voldemort, except for, this 10-year-old kid with a scar on his forehead.
Right.
The boy who lived. Wow. Well, I sort of feel like there's some logical inconsistency with what that guy was. He was up there for the second time, James Jackson, he, him, Sacramento,
Right.
whatever, yelling at everybody for hissing or respond. And he said, your ability to express yourself should not trump my problem, or essentially, or whatever.
Like comfort, yeah.
Yeah.
The ultimate irony
Exactly.
in that they're worried about infringing on other people's rights. Yep.
Oh, man. So this next guy that you can see up at the podium.
You called him a guy? How dare you assume
Yeah,
his
pardon,
gender?
pardon me.
The
I
next
totally
comrade.
assumed his gender. Well, he does have a beard, I guess, but
Point of privilege, we should talk about Jessica Yaniv
yeah.
moving forward, too. That's another, I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show.
we
But
can-
anyway,
we can find him later.
how dare you?
So this guy does a thing that I find particularly annoying is he'll say blah, 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 right? Blah, 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 blah,
Of course.
right? And
Yes.
it's just I guess some sort of a speech pattern that he
Yep.
has, but it's like you have to reaffirm whatever crazy thing you're saying by saying right.
That happens constantly in the world of tech. I listen to several tech podcasts, and that stuff happens all the time, and it's almost unlistenable because of how much these people do this. Like, why are you so insecure that you need to make sure that other people understand you, like every sentence, right?
I don't know.
Also, get off my lawn.
Is it a West Coast thing, or is
I
it a
think
tech thing, or what is it?
Tech West Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say. So this
See
guy,
that no one's clapping for me. It could be because I'm not engaging, but it also is because everyone's doing this. And that's really important because those loud bursts of noise, even though this is a noisy space, when we can do something like reducing that, that's really important. So please don't clap, shoot up these. We have a lot of
he just said
disabled
shoot up.
Oh.
That could
Whoa.
be triggering to many people.
Whoa.
Oofda.
I would call him out on
Yeah.
that.
Is this
Shoot
a
up
walkie-talkie
these.
in his front pocket?
Oh. Yeah,
I think so. He's got a red bandana on.
of course. Comrade.
Man. And it looks like a kind of quasi-army jacket
Right.
from the Gap or something. What a tough guy.
comrades, and a lot of those are invisible disabilities. You don't know who it is.
Yeah, invisible disabilities. What's that tell you?
Well, like I understand like anxiety and loud noises and stuff and how for some people that might be too much. Like think about how when you're at my family get-togethers, how it's kind of over.
Well, that's just because I don't
stimulating.
like kids, Laura.
But like at the same
have to
time,
get up and
these
leave.
are these people not choosing to come to a public place that may or may not trigger some, stimuli or whatever. So to have to go like this instead of clapping because someone who has anxiety or over stimuli chose to come to this event.
Why is it everybody else's burden to accommodate somebody's problem, like one individual's issue? When was the switch over?
I don't know.
Maybe because clearly from an administrative standpoint, it's super efficient for the Democratic Socialists to cater to every single point of personal privilege.
So the DSA is Bernie Sanders' party, correct?
I think that's right. Yeah.
And this is why the Democrats will not win in 2020. We're looking at it here.
That is having a more difficult time navigating this space, and this space was not created with all of their needs in mind. So it's up to us to modify that space to make sure that everybody is able to move in the ways that they need to move. And additionally, with the noise issue, like avoid hissing, avoid waving
Hissing?
banners, right? because there's all sorts of things. If you don't know what to do, show up these, right? I'm sure there's lots of ways that we can communicate
Right.
to each other without needing to rely on something that's going to hurt somebody else. We have quiet rooms that are available. There's a range of options of these, right? Please don't go into
called
that
a padded
space with
cell.
anything that's
That's unbelievable.
They know who
Oh,
they're
my
pandering
God.
to.
Why don't they
Wow.
just, instead of having everyone come to this event, just broadcast
There you
it
go.
across
No
their,
kidding.
computers and have
Yeah.
them? Then they don't have to worry
Yeah.
about any of this.
I guess.
I
That would
I
make
like that.
sense, though, I
Yeah.
suppose.
I
so.
guess you can't interrupt though and
Yeah.
tell people about
How can
whatever.
you derail the entire thing by making everybody pay attention to your invisible problem?
like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? 'Cause we don't
Yeah, don't go into the safe room with too much cologne
cologne.
on,
Too much axe.
because yeah,
Well, why
Or
are
else
people
they'll axe you
wearing
to leave.
why are people wearing cologne in the first place? Were they not thinking about the people they'd be around?
Well, what if it's down to wearing some Axe or smelling horrible neckbeard BO or something in the
Well, they
mean-
shouldn't be allowed in the room either.
exactly.
Whoa. You're going to keep smelly people from coming in your room? You're so privileged. Would you tell a smelly student to stay out of your classroom?
No. But see, that's a public place that students really don't have a choice to go to. So, like at a school, I mean, they do to some extent, but at a school, this is different than a
I
school.
understand. I had a really smelly teacher one time in college, and he knew he stunk too. Kids would tell him to his face, and he never did anything about it. I don't know if it was like his shtick.
BOs.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the smelly teacher.
Oh, jeez.
But it was bad.
God, I had to be on a jury one time for the trial advocacy class, and one of the jurors, he turned into a friend of mine, but that kid smelled so horrible that we only deliberated for like 5 minutes, and it was, I think it was a first-degree murder trial.
Jeez.
He was like, "Yeah, find him guilty, whatever. Let's go, get out of here."
Oh, wow.
He smelled that bad.
don't want to put people in stressful situations that they don't consent to, right? And there are right-wing infiltrators who are trying to get in here, but it's going to be really traumatic for people if
Are they worried that somehow they're going to make you look bad?
Yeah.
we're not making an affirmative effort to de-escalate each other and de-escalate ourselves, right? Take a deep breath. And feel better before you say anything. Don't really talk to anybody who doesn't have a credential, especially if you claim to be from the press. You have no idea who that person is. Please do not talk to anybody who identifies themselves as a member of the press without having credentials.
So
don't.
if you say you're just out with a camera interviewing people on the street, you can just say I'm with the independent press, right? You don't.
I would think so. I don't know. Do you have to, I mean...
I think I've seen that done before,
Yeah.
where it's like if you want, you have to get press credentials to get into certain places, but as far as just being in a public place, you can interview whoever you want, and they have the right to refuse it too.
Yeah, sure.
But
Talk to cops. Don't talk to MAGA assholes. We're almost there. Just but thank you. We are going to be visited tomorrow by some MAGA protesters. Is there anybody here who's done abortion clinic escort work? By all means, don't talk to cops if there are cops there for any reason at all, right? And if you do see someone talking to cops, let the marshals know. We are.
I've seen that done too, where say InfoWars will be out at some event interviewing SJWs, and then like the leaders of the group will come and say, "Don't talk to those people. You can't talk to those people." Like to try to shut them up and
Right.
yeah,
Right.
keep 'em- right, yeah. So right.
Well,
I mean-
that seems so Orwellian to me, because don't think for yourself.
Yeah.
Defer to somebody with a badge on or something.
Why can't you talk to a cop?
Because cops are all bad, right?
Right.
But what if you're married to a cop?
What if you get robbed or something out in front of the place and you need to report it to the police? Oh no. Tell
Tell the marshals.
Zur Zim here with his bandana on and stuff that you got robbed.
Yeah.
Tell the marshals.
Tell the marshals.
I can't take any more of this. Luckily, it's about over
We are
with.
done. That didn't take as long as I thought it would.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
Well, time for conspiracy glasses.
Mr. Epstein.
Yep, we're moving on. So, help me fill in the background here, Vin. But Epstein was a rich financial advisor guy or something, and he rubbed elbows with all sorts of elites.
He, was also he was in jail for his child sex ring. Supposedly, he had this island where a lot of this stuff went down. He would fly other rich business people there to do whatever you do on an island with children. And got popped, ended up in jail. Wasn't in jail for very long before now apparently he's committed suicide. Also had ties to the Clintons. I think he had a private jet which was like nicknamed the Lolita Express. And Bill Clinton showed up on the manifests and the flight rosters for some of those flights. And so he's got loose ties to the Clintons. It's not surprising, according to many folks, that he is no longer
Turned up
alive.
dead.
Yeah. I heard that he wasn't being monitored. So he was on suicide watch.
Because a week or two ago, they found him unresponsive, and it was after quote unquote attempted suicide or something.
Right. And so he was being monitored very, very heavily for future attempts. And based on what I'm seeing, like if you're on federal suicide watch in prison, it's almost impossible to actually off yourself. And so a lot of people are naturally asking the question, well, what actually is going on here? And I think Bill Barr is launching an investigation into this, figuring out what actually went down. But if you do a search for the Clinton body count, there's all kinds of interesting theories related to people that are close to the Clintons and then are all of a sudden
turned up.
Yes, they get disappeared.
Disappeared or committed suicide or something. It's like that episode in House of Cards when that girl knew too much or whatever, and they shoved her in front of the train.
There you go.
Yeah.
Accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein bringing new grief to his alleged victims, even in death.
And he really stole a big part of my life.
Jennifer Rose claimed Epstein raped her when she was just 15.
What he did to me was disgusting, and I know that justice will be served.
But the financier's apparent death by suicide robbed her and other alleged victims of the chance to face him in court. A Rose expressing her anger in a statement. We have to live with the scars of his actions for the rest of our lives, while he will never face the consequences of the crimes. Multiple law enforcement sources tell NBC News that Epstein hanged himself in his Manhattan jail cell Saturday morning.
I wonder with what instrument, though, because
Right.
if you're on suicide watch, I would think they'd take away your shoelaces and stuff. I mean, that seems fairly obvious.
I would think so. This is so bizarre that it's got like both sides of the political spectrum asking questions.
Right.
Like it's one thing to talk about the Clinton body count. Yeah, those are probably like right-wing talking points, but this has left-leaning folks talking about it too, which I think gives some, credibility to the
I would
subject.
agree. Mm-hmm.
3 weeks ago, prison authorities found him injured with marks on his neck, possibly an attempt to take his own life. He was put on suicide watch but taken off in less than a week, according to multiple law enforcement sources. Both the FBI and Inspector General are conducting investigations into the high-profile death. Attorney General William Barr writing, I was appalled to learn that Jeffrey Epstein was found dead. Mr. Epstein's death raises serious questions that must be answered.
The job of Epstein's criminal defense lawyers is essentially over because the federal government doesn't prosecute deceased people.
Okay.
That was a completely useless comment.
We don't prosecute dead people.
Right.
But one of his attorneys still mounting a vigorous defense, releasing a scathing statement blaming Epstein's death on overzealous prosecutors, pandering politicians, and a hysterical press corps, adding that all seem to have a share of Mr. Epstein's blood on their hands.
Yeah, that's got to be upsetting to the victims, too.
Well, that's a part of the story, I suppose, that the conspiracy angle doesn't really touch on very much, but it's absolutely true, is that now the facts aren't going to come out.
Right, and I think that's conspiracy folks would embrace that by saying, well, okay, there's all this stuff that could have come to light that isn't going to do so now that he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Or that people like the Clintons just got nervous and he was getting too close to things that they were involved with. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely worthy of throwing on the conspiracy glasses.
Yeah, I
can
would
say that much for sure.
It's I just looked at Twitter again, and yeah, Epstein suicide cover-up is still trending.
I'm not surprised. I've seen a few videos today on YouTube about it, and it's just the nature of it. It's like, think how desperate they must have been if they were going to make it this obvious,
right.
And how sloppily done it's been. Because there'd have to be some structures in place to ensure that this kind of thing wouldn't happen, because from just the state's perspective on prosecuting people that are charged with a crime, they don't want their criminals to die in jail before they have a chance to put them on trial.
Right.
So security cameras, check-in logs, and that sort. I mean, I tell you from my own experience visiting people in Emmett County Jail, the amount of stuff you've got to do to make sure you're signed in and out and go through the rigmarole and all of that.
Yeah.
It's fairly significant. So there's got to be some record keeping, I would think. They can piece some sort of a timeline together. It's just like, oh, well, here he is, hanging from the water pipe at the top of the cell or what.
Yeah, where do you hang yourself from?
Exactly. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see how this develops, because
at least it's being talked about.
Yeah, that's true. I was almost wondering if, well, there he's dead.
Yep.
Let's move on.
He got justice, or justice was served.
Yep.
He won't be able to harm anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Although, let's say, is death for sex abuse or rape charge an equal consequence? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was the question?
Well, he said, justice is served. Well,
I don't think that, by the way.
no, I'm just saying, but like, when people are like abusing animals or something on Facebook, or when someone is allegedly a sexual harasser or sexual assault, person, and they're like, death to them. But is that really the consequence that should happen? Wouldn't a terrible rest of life, or something? I don't know, but
we're slipping
it's
into
always like
the capital punishment
I
debate.
can feel the
it's always like death
shifting.
is the ultimate punishment for someone, but that might just be the easy way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that death is warranted if the person is like constantly escaping jail, and getting out and committing crime after crime, even though we've locked them up.
Right.
But in general, I'm not that in favor of the death penalty.
Yeah. Are you a life without parole supporter, or
well, for very extreme circumstances, I think.
Yeah.
I like the idea of reform, but obviously there are people who will never reform. So I think the option needs to be on the table. But,
yep.
I don't know. It's expensive to keep people locked up. It's also
is.
expensive to execute them.
Yep. At least the way it's done in the United
just
States.
release them to the public. That'll be pretty easy.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess maybe on the flip side, nobody on death row or that's been executed, and I know there have been examples of when there's exonerating evidence and that sort of thing, DNA, and people have come off death row and all of that. But from the judicial standpoint, the burden on the state to put somebody on death row is the absolute highest standard of proof that there is, and it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And they almost every time have exhausted their post-conviction relief appellate process and that sort of thing. So, and that's oftentimes why people sit on death row for extended periods of time, is because there's stays on the execution and appeal processes and so on and so forth that can really drag it on a long time. But
automatic appeals and stuff.
Yeah, right.
That kind of stuff happens.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, you don't arrive at death row. I guess my point is you don't arrive at death row without having gone down a significant judicial
But
journey.
what crimes put you in the potential for death row?
Oh, sure. Well, I think it's only capital murder, first-degree murder in any state that'll land you there.
So even this guy wouldn't have landed on death row, so...
Yeah, no, chances are. I think he would have been a lifetime prisoner, I would think. But
it seems to me that folks with his types of crimes have a particularly difficult time in jail. I think we've all seen prison documentaries where it's like, well, those guys,
right.
the guys who mess
the
with kids.
pedophiles and the rapists, they
other prisoners don't like them.
That's right. Interesting. But yeah, to the point earlier that was made about how the Epstein thing may have gotten swept under the rug, just waiting for another news story to come along. And
right.
Because isn't that the trend in the United States, is we all seem to really care about something for 24 to 48 hours, and then something else happens.
Pretty much.
Have like an ICE raid, for example. How's that for a forced segue?
Very good.
So the ICE raids happened, maybe 24 to 48 hours ago or something? I don't know. But it was substantial, and it was in some state in the deep south, as I recall. Mississippi. Yeah. Yep. Mississippi. Down the deep south.
Some bit.
Yep. And immediately the crying children were placed front and center because their parents were stripped away from them. And
you mean parents who commit crimes get taken away from their kids?
I guess. But it's
Shocking.
probably only the undocumented immigrants.
Oh.
Any other.
You mean
criminal.
the illegals? They're illegal humans.
Tonight, 377 of the 600 immigrants caught up in the raid remain in federal detention. Here and at the other food processing plants where they worked, some are now asking if they violated immigration laws, did the people who hired them also break the law? Tonight, the owner...
presuming the companies hiring these people didn't ask for papers or citizenship or anything, proof of citizenship. My stance on this has always been, like, for the people who are here now, yes, technically illegally, and are well integrated into society, it doesn't really make that much sense. They have families, so it doesn't make that much sense to ship them back, nor does it seem practical. Like, are you going to round everybody up at the Walmart parking lot and bus them back to Mexico? Probably not. So there probably should be some path to citizenship there for those people, but for those who've committed like actual crimes other than coming in here illegally, those guys need to be sent back. And certainly I think we could agree that something needs to be done at the border so it's not just totally open. People just wandering in, caravans, drugs, all that stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't take it as hard line to say send them all back home if they're here illegally.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that that policy would be a little too stiff for me. And I mean, the kind of people that I want to share the country with are ones who are pulling on the rope in the same direction that I am, so to speak. People who have jobs, pay taxes, contribute to society, all that kind of thing. And I've got no problem with folks coming from anywhere that want to do that and come and be an American.
Right.
And part of that I think is acquiescing to the American set of ideals and life standards and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So, I don't think the United States is a spot where Sharia law, for example, should be able to
Yeah.
assert itself.
You mean I don't have to give my employees 5 hours a day to pray on their rugs?
And that's just part of it.
Right.
Otherwise, go somewhere else, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, from a practicability standpoint, it would be too much for those. And
Right.
why would you want to? At the same time, somebody's been here for 25 years or something like that. They probably well assimilated, and you know.
And if we send them all back, who's going to scrub our toilets and pick our vegetables?
Right.
Which is what the left says. I've heard people on the left make those claims and remarks, and that is an incredibly racist statement
it's
underneath
awful.
the surface.
Yep.
It's like I had another thing come to my mind, and you know, this is like the topic of people here legally helping out illegal people do illegal things, and so I think it was, I don't remember who was telling me or us. I think it was probably in church. The example was made like, okay, so there's Hispanic people coming across the border, say they're crossing the border, dying of thirst. Should you set out, say, a pitcher of water to give them, you know, something to drink so that they don't die? Well, you're helping a criminal because they're here illegally, but on the other side, you're also helping them not die. So is there like anything legally that you could shed light on this with, or?
So yeah, the idea would be, are you like aiding
and abetting?
Aiding and abetting by helping somebody cross the border.
Yeah, by giving them water.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if you're just setting out water somewhere on your property, and then you've got a high probability that you know somebody's going to come walking by thirsty, but you don't know who.
Right.
I mean, there would be, like, from a conspiracy standpoint, there's a necessary element of working together. You sort of coordinate your plans, and then the other part of it is you take some sort of substantial step in furtherance of whatever crime it is that you're doing. So you could maybe make the argument there that the water thing would be the substantial step in furtherance of the crime of crossing the border. But there's been no element of coordination with the other person because you don't know who's going to grab it.
Right.
And, unless there's some sort of specific law on setting water out on your property. So I don't know. That would be a pretty tough. I wouldn't want to try to prosecute that case. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty big loser. Doesn't sound like it's too solid.
It's just interesting as a thought experiment.
Yeah.
It's like, where does your humanity begin versus where the law ends? Like, I'm going to break the law, but I'm also possibly going to save somebody's life.
Sure.
So how do you weigh those two?
At the same time, too, if you see some random person on the street that's thirsty, how are you to know whether he's there legally or not? Unless you saw them cross the border yourself, you don't know. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess I was sort of presupposing for the purposes of this hypothetical, like your yard is immediately on the border in Arizona or something like that, and you've just got, there's a pattern of people cutting through your backyard on their way to the greener pastures and, leaving out pitchers of water for them.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. That's a thought-provoking little little thing there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Owners and managers at the 7 chicken processing plants that were raided may also face federal charges. According to a newly unsealed government affidavit, at least 2 of the companies were willfully and unlawfully employing illegal aliens in violation of federal law.
Do you suppose that's because they can give them sub-minimum wage?
I don't know. That would be, I think, a logical deduction, but I don't really know the reason.
Or is the work just that bad that
nobody would do it?
Right. No citizen would actually do it, so they just turn the other.
Maybe they can get away with not, I don't know, not doing tax withholding or something, or I have no idea. Yeah, maybe pay them less per hour, but then they don't have to withhold. I have it's confusing. I think I support this crackdown on businesses hiring people because, I mean, to me, that's sort of nipping it in the bud.
Right.
If folks know that their job opportunity, whatever they think may exist, could get cut off at the root.
Right.
You know.
And I think it's a slap in the face to people who come here and immigrate legally. You know, they go through all those hassles of filling out paperwork and paying all this money to become a U.S. citizen, and they do things the right way, and they're here, and that's great. And I think everybody would support that. But then to just have people break the law and just get in, you know,
pretty unfair.
Back channels is very unfair.
Court documents reveal that immigration investigators worked with informants inside the plants, helping expose how managers allegedly knew they were breaking the law when they hired. Tonight, in a statement, Cook Foods, which was among those raided, says in part, an employer can also find itself in jeopardy of committing unlawful discrimination if it acts too aggressively in the effort to comply with the immigration laws.
So would that be a case of like, okay, my potential employee is black or brown, therefore that black or brown person must provide me with papers, whereas your Caucasian counterpart does not?
I guess.
I'm assuming is where that statement's going.
I think so. So I kind of... You know, okay, Mr. Gomez.
Right.
You know, we'll put you under some extra scrutiny.
But Bill Johnson, you're fine.
I don't know. Cook Company or whatever the heck it was.
Since she walked to the United States from Guatemala 16 years ago, Flori Lopez has worked for one of the plants. Now she's been fitted with a geo-tracking ankle monitor to make sure she doesn't go back to work. She openly admits she got her job with a fake Social Security number.
There you go. So what's the controversy?
Right. But see, kids over here, and you know, kind of lady with a dejected look on her face.
Nice dress, you know, nice.
Yep.
Nice outfit.
So there. That's the argument, Kevin.
Was.
Es falso, no sé si fue inventado.
Just false, just invented.
To confirm someone applying for a job can legally work in the U.S., employers use what's called E-Verify, a system that matches a state-issued ID like a driver's license and a Social Security number, both provided by prospective employees. But there are loopholes.
All that is needed to fool the E-Verify system is a fake picture ID.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, how easy is it? If you can get a fake Social Security card, you would think it's even easier to get a fake driver's license that matches. Like,
well, why don't you tell us, Laura?
Yeah, you know about
fake
this.
ID woman.
Well, think of all the non-21-year-olds who have fake IDs to get into bars.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to do.
Tell us how it works.
I don't know. I've never had one.
Oh, really?
A fake Social Security card, but that had the real name and real Social Security number of an actual human being.
God, this guy, wow.
I think he needs to produce his papers, Leon Fresco.
No kidding. He looks like a frog.
And Carrie, how often are employers held accountable?
Well, according to statistics gathered by Syracuse University, in a one-year period under the Trump administration, not one big company has been prosecuted. The owners of 11 small...
Was the Trump administration thing necessary for... I mean...
You got to look for that stuff in like the everyday headlines you read. People will inject these little gotchas or little jabs at every possible opportunity, and that's one of them.
Because let's apply Occam's razor here. Is it more likely because the study is a result of some Trump administration edict that no business has been prosecuted, or is it more likely it's just because Syracuse did the study within the last 3 years?
Exactly. Here's another example. I just pulled up CNN. Second headline: Trump promotes Epstein-Clinton conspiracy theory, the latest in a pattern of baseless claims spread by the president. What? Baseless claims, all these little key words that you got to watch out for if you're trying to actually read unbiased news.
It drives me crazy.
NPR does it. I mean, people who you wouldn't expect do this kind of crap, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, the amount of persuasive language that exists in news reporting now is
so insidious.
It's so egregious anymore that I think that alone can put something into fake news.
Right.
What I would count as a fake news bubble, because it is designed to make you think a certain thing.
And that headline, to be honest, I was surprised it didn't have opinion or analysis, because usually a CNN
that's the cop out, right? Yeah.
If they have headlines that biased, they'll put that it's just opinion or it's just analysis, but that didn't even have that little tag on it.
It's garbage.
Yeah.
What's a person to do anymore, Laura? How do you avoid fake news?
That's a great question.
Like finding, like, what do you mean?
What do you do for your news?
I scroll through Facebook.
Listen to Jimmy.
Listen to Jimmy.
Listen to me bloviate.
The only news I listen to is Bachelor franchise news.
Oh dear. We're asking the wrong person. Yep. Well, yeah, that's my new thing is bloviating on Facebook with huge things about
paragraphs and
all the stuff that I think is going to happen in my hypothetical version of the community that I live in.
Yeah.
Reminds me of a certain Facebook page I recently liked.
Yeah.
Make Emmett County great again.
Yeah. I wish it would get great again.
If only we could bring back the old pool.
All right, let's go down the rabbit hole.
Do we have to go there now?
Might as well.
Because I have some serious questions
Yeah.
about the pool vote that just happened.
Laura's a pool proponent.
Good.
So.
Yeah, but we were not able to vote. We're not in city limits, so we were not able to vote.
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So growing up, we all grew up around here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had the outdoor pool. Spent many a summer day, all day at the pool.
Yep.
Pool rats as we were.
Sure.
It was great. But now, like for the last couple years, it's been closed. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Big cracks in the
I think that's true.
foundation, losing water, gallons and gallons and gallons of water. So the proposition is to either the big debate, I guess, in Esterville, and I don't live here, so that's odd that I'm talking about it. But are they going to build another pool, like a brand new pool next to the wellness center, or try to repair the old one? And my big question is, and my hard-hitting question for everyone here is, doesn't Esterville already have a great pool at the wellness center? Like, why can't that one be used instead of building another brand new pool, or even fixing the old one? Why does Esterville need two pools?
Well, one, the wellness center pool is indoor, and no one wants to be indoors when it's nice outside. And two, there's something like the wellness center pool indoors, for whatever reason, is very like strong chlorine scent. Like, you know, when you go to a hotel, you can tell when it has a pool in it, like almost immediately. And that's, you know, no one wants to sit and then smell that all day long. And as a parent, when you're not swimming, you want to sit out in the sun, not indoors. And I think that's the argument.
So you're telling me. How much is this new pool going to cost you guys?
What is it?
Oh,
4 million or
yeah.
something like that.
So because little Johnny just has to be outside, you guys are going to drop $4 million large on a second pool.
I guess. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know Esterville had that kind of money to throw around.
Yeah, apparently we do.
Good for you guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's all sorts of rich benefactors around, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah.
I also heard it said, and you guys can do whatever you want. I don't care. We swim at the Y in Spirit Lake in an indoor pool. But I heard it said like, okay, well, the wellness center is also too expensive for people. And so we're going to build a public pool outside that I guess people can afford. So then you're creating like a pool for rich kids and a pool for poor kids, which is interesting.
Yep. Yeah, because you can come in off the street at the wellness center and go swimming. You don't have to be a member, right?
Right, and it's
that costs
whatever the
X
daily
fee.
rate. I
Yeah.
think it's whatever the outdoor pool was open, whatever that daily rate was,
Mhm.
you pay if you go swim right now at the wellness center.
Yeah.
So here's my out of the box thinking. Take that $4 million and subsidize the wellness center. Then people can go swim for cheaper.
Mm-hmm. and you don't need a second pool, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
But then you need people who are pro wellness center,
So that's a thing
i.e.
too?
pro school,
Okay,
because
so
the wellness center is owned and operated by the school.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Allegedly.
the rabbit hole goes
Is that
deeper.
true or
Yeah.
not true? Is it
Ah.
actually owned and operated by the school?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's some sort of...
Or is it a siloed money that just runs through the school that's not actually school money?
Well, so my understanding was a wellness center in its inception was part of a large donation from a benefactor plus community fundraising.
And the
and then
guard.
tied in with the National Guard. So there was, threw all that money together, and you have the wellness center. And I think the ELC school district administers the wellness center end of it, and of course it's got nothing to do with the National Guard portion, but like I think administrative staff of the wellness center are employees of the school district, I believe.
On paper, yeah.
On paper, yes. But I don't know if their budget is part of the school's budget or how that comes about, or if the wellness center makes enough money on its own that it's totally self-sustaining. I have no idea about any of those.
Right,
things.
and well, and the other thing is the RWC has their own board of directors, I guess you would call them. So if it was really owned and operated by the school, you'd think they'd just have the school board make all the decisions, but they don't. They have their own board. So there's some disconnect there, because why would you need a separate board of people if the school board is making all the school's decisions and the RWC was part of the school?
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be probably something like that. The wellness center is a subsidiary business association, so it's its own LLC or something like that. And then the school district exists as sort of a parent entity on top of it somehow. But without having access to all the paperwork and everything, it'd be pretty hard to make that determination.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the argument for fixing the old pool? Just nostalgia?
It's cheaper,
Okay.
allegedly.
Okay.
But, you know, if we actually had someone come investigate the pool in person, we would know for sure. That's the argument, is no one actually came to look at the pool.
Or at least the wrong people
Right.
came, because the
Pool
people
salesman.
that did come, had a vested interest in
Right.
selling a new pool.
Right.
So.
But even still, think of when our air conditioner went out. Well, I'm sure the people that came to fix it are trying to push a new air conditioner unit, but our 30-year unit, at what point do you say, all right, let's just get something better that will actually work for a longer period of time, instead of having to patch it up for another 10 years and then spending money on a brand new thing?
Yep. And we didn't get a second opinion either. That was probably a big mistake on our part.
But also the second opinion probably couldn't come the next day to get it done.
And it was also 99 degrees at the time.
Huh. Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I was going to
Sorry,
say, plus the location of the old pool seems not ideal, being in a flood.
But the
zone,
campground.
I heard that somewhere. I was like, Esterville's a campground?
It's a hypothetical one.
Oh.
So take a trip with me into Wonderland. The idea would be a campground across the street from the VFW, where the county and the city of Esterville dumps all the snow in the wintertime.
Yes.
You know, that kind of flat spot.
Yep.
So a bunch of campers and, people sitting fireside, making s'mores and whatnot. And there'd be the construction of a new sort of fishing walk bridge from there to roughly where the Riverside tennis courts were over the river. And there's the outlet for the creek that goes back by Isaac Walton in there, and there'd have a guy that renting kayaks to tourists and stuff, and children squealing as they run up to the
food vendors along the.
Oh yeah, I'm getting there. Yeah,
okay.
We've got the Renaissance Fair in between, roughly where the Riverside tennis courts used to be, and the old pool, which has been restored with pocket change, because that's how cheap it was going to be. And, hot dogs and funnel cakes and amusement park. It's like a circus with a roller coaster, and, it's going to be great.
But can I ask, okay, one of his arguments, one of people's arguments,
Who are you talking about?
one of people's arguments were that a new pool is going to be too expensive for people to come to on a daily basis or whatever. $5 a day is just too much for some families. How is the carnival circus, like a fair thing, any cheaper than a pool pass? Because it's not. That's a more expensive option for people who can't afford it in the first place. So how is that going to survive?
Good question.
Okay.
Well, I know,
everything's free.
The Y in Spirit Lake has like a sliding scale they use for if your family can't afford the regular membership, they say, okay, show us your taxes or whatever, and then we'll give you a discount. I wonder why that couldn't be done.
Well, I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think they're looking into scholarship programs and things like that. So essentially everyone would be able to afford a pool. I mean, Lakefield, the town I grew up in, has 1,600 people in it, and they have a pool similar to the one that's going to be built now. And
But you already have a pool here.
Lakefield, well, yeah.
That's my whole thing. Like, you guys already have a pool. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, man.
But we've had
two of them.
We had the outdoor pool up until just a few years ago.
I know, and I thought that was crazy too.
And then the RWC has a pool.
I thought that was very strange.
And so we're just a town deserving of two pools.
I guess so.
I like my thing where we need to build a dam from the ski hill all the way over to Spurgeon Park.
Yes.
And fill up the whole river basin, and we can have just a giant lake and compete with the lakes area.
Nice. Okay.
With our chocolate milk water of the West Fork of the Des Moines River. And it'll be great.
Yep. You guys could have 3 pools.
Woody's Pizza will just have to move up the hill a little bit,
Yeah, and it'll be just fine.
The rest of them, who cares?
Yeah.
The river's pretty unswimmable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a constituency of people that like to kayak or float down the river a little bit, but I've done it before. It's disgusting.
Okay.
And it was my dad and I went one time from it's like a couple of miles north of town. There's a great big hill that you go down and right by the river. So really wasn't a long ride, and we rode into 4th Street where northwest side of Esterville. Took us hours. If I hadn't been there, Dad would have died for sure. I mean, like, there's like trees down and stuff, and we had to like get out and forge through mud and carry the canoe over it. It was horrible. So this idea that we can kind of have a Wisconsin Dells river culture thing in Esterville is laughable. I mean, the river is full of runoff and mud, and it's disgusting. So nobody's going to want to go recreate the river any more than they're doing already.
I remember there was this random slide, like children's slide, next to the old pool. And it was like 50 feet tall. Just this huge slide, very tall. And when it would flood, the water would come up to the bottom of the slide, and all the kids would be like, "Water slide!" And all the parents were like, "Do not go on that slide and go into the river." But it was so tempting. The Esterville water slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. The pool thing has certainly been a hot button issue, but
I get that impression.
Hasn't seemed to have been too much firestorm about it online here since the vote passed.
The vote passed with no collusion. Is that correct?
I guess.
All right, no Russian.
No collusion, total exoneration.
Good. No tampering.
No tampering. Nothing.
All right.
Well,
this guy looks really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, do we want to stick with this, or should we get to Andrew Yang's liberal tears?
We can move on, I guess.
Okay.
How long have we been going, by the way?
Oh, God. We're in about an hour and 5 minutes
Cool.
right now.
Very good.
Yep, making decent time. Okay, I skipped ahead a little bit. The lead up to this video was a bunch of crap, but this is, I think, took place in Des Moines, because I think the candidates are all hitting up the Iowa State Fair right now.
Sure.
And
Makes
we're,
sense.
of course, in the wake of a couple of mass shootings.
Yep.
You know, Project Ion condemns mass shootings as if that's necessary to say.
Right. We condemn all forms of violence, all
Yep.
forms of gun violence. But this was interesting because there were 2 mass shootings in 2 days, I think. And one said he was inspired by basically right-wing extremism. One said he was inspired by left-wing. And I think...
Yeah, the El Paso one was...
Yeah.
I read that manifesto.
Good. I think we should be reading these manifestos, by the way.
Yeah, it's important.
I think like Ben Shapiro... No, Glenn Beck and the Blaze Network always had this policy of like not reading manifestos. Like, what an interesting psychological viewpoint into how these people think. But anyway, you read it?
Yeah, I did. The El Paso shooter definitely had kind of white identitarian sort of supremacy sort of ideals there. But, I mean, it read to me like a confused kid that was sort of on this mission for glory, kind of. I didn't happen to read a Dayton manifesto. I'm not even sure if there was one.
Right. Yeah, I don't think so.
But the El Paso guy was, I would say, kind of a far right extremist, whereas the Dayton one, it sounds like they pieced together from his online profiles and that kind of thing that he was like an Antifa guy.
Right. Yep.
And for whatever reason, the only one that's being talked about is the El Paso shooting.
Shocking.
On the mainstream news.
Of course, because white terrorism.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, though, the shooters sort of look the same. It's like these kind of pasty, geeky-looking kids. Yeah, it was pretty wild. But anyways, I think politicians, as they do, are capitalizing on the latest thing.
I watched Trump's response to this situation live, and of course, me being in the gaming kind of industry takes issue with him saying that we have these kids playing these extremely violent video games, and it's what always happens. The left blames guns and the NRA, and the NRA blames video games
and
it's
mental health.
And mental health, yeah. And it's just this big circle, and nobody can figure out what to do. Nothing gets done, and it's just round and round we go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Meanwhile, things continue to degrade, and then unfortunately, people keep getting shot.
Right.
You know?
People say to me, did Donald Trump cause those?
She looks tired.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Think how exhausting that would be to be on the campaign trail.
No kidding.
Every day working through your bullet points.
Oh. Like, I don't notice that stuff about people. I can't tell if people are tired or sick or whatever. She looks tired.
Yeah.
Folks to be killed? Well, no, of course, he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition.
Tweeting out the ammunition? That's a good...
Is she gonna... I hope she goes into detail about that, because...
She's tweeting out the ammunition.
Thank you for saying that, because people say these types of things all the time. Trump's racist, Trump's misogynistic, Trump's homophobic, Trump is tweeting out the ammunition, but they never say why or like have examples.
Just declarative statements.
Right. I just got it.
Message that's been relayed by other Democratic presidential candidates who have said that the president's words have kind of sparked some of this animus across the country. And then there was...
How do you evidence that, though?
But, okay, so what point are they trying to make? That because Trump has said something that these people have been... felt the need to do a mass shooting?
To use the El Paso guy for an example, it's specifically stated in his manifesto. He said the news is going to blame Trump for this. And he said he liked the Christchurch shooter. And it was, kind of a hastily put together plan, but he believed that Hispanics are invading, and that's why he targeted El Paso. And
he predicted how the media would respond to this,
and
and he was exactly right.
100% right.
Also a very emotional moment just a short while ago with Andrew Yang when he was asked, a woman asked a question and noted that her young child was killed by a stray bullet. Take a look at that moment that happened just a short while ago.
I have a 6 and 3-year-old boy. I was imagining it was one of them that got shot and the other saw it.
Why would you imagine that?
Yeah.
Like, there's all kinds of things I could imagine happening to Lily, but I don't, so I don't react like this.
Yeah.
And it'll just make you go crazy.
Why would you want to put yourself in that kind of mental headspace necessarily? Because does that make you that much more empathetic if you kind of torture yourself mentally to put yourself in the shoes of the other person?
That, in my opinion, is what the left does more than the right. Is it's self-loathing and self-torturing and self-hating. Yeah, that's a characteristic of the left, in my opinion.
Well, maybe if the kids had $1,000 a month, they could buy some body armor and an AR-15 of their own and shoot back a little.
UBI.
That scene that you described, I'm sorry, it's like very, very affecting. You're right that when there's a gun in the household, you're more likely to have a child get shot or the owner get shot than to kill, let's say, an intruder into the house. Those are just numbers.
What?
Those are just the...
So if you have a gun in the house, you're more likely to have a child get shot than to kill an intruder.
Like from your gun?
I guess.
He's got loaded guns laying on the kitchen table.
How do they even come up with that?
I have a theory. So he's probably talking about like guns in the hood, like kids in the ghetto whose parents are gangbangers and have guns just laying around. And that probably happens a lot. But to the responsible family who owns a gun, keeps it locked away and safe in case of an intruder or government tyranny is what they like to say too. No, I can't see that.
Right. My brother and my sister-in-law both have guns, and I mean, they've taught their kids this is not a play toy. It's in the safe unless it's on my brother's body, which, it's not even loaded, I don't think, when it's on his body, because that would be stupid, and he's not a dumb person. But it's like... That's a ridiculous statistic that he's trying to make a point on, because most gun owners, I would say, are very responsible people and keep their guns in locked places or very safe and teach their children about the safety of guns.
Well, and when you've got a dangerous tool such as a gun laying around, there's a certain risk of an accidental discharge.
Well, what about a steak knife?
Well, yeah, or a bandsaw, or any number of things that are potentially dangerous.
The more I think about it, the more I like my theory, because you can make stats do whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
And it would technically be true that there's a kid in a home with a gang-banging father who has guns everywhere and gets shot by them. Of course that's going to drive up these stats.
There's all sorts of qualifying information there that's not present in the presentation here. If you do some sort of like per 100,000 odds of a home invasion, per 100,000 chance of an accidental death.
Right,
from
and
a firearm.
the home invasion is probably like the gated communities. Well, there aren't very many of them, versus kids getting shot with a gun in the ghetto community.
Yeah,
it's not even comparing the same communities.
Apples
assuming.
to oranges.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you guys happen to see so one thing that people have been talking about in the wake of the Dayton and El Paso thing is we've had like 250 mass shootings in 2019, but there's only been 200 days of 2019. And so it's like way more mass shootings than, days of the year.
Sure.
Can I ask quick, what makes it a mass shooting versus like just a shooting?
Yeah, well, I think there's some definitions to that, it's like if 4 or more people are shot or injured in a single incident. It's something like that.
Okay.
I can't give it to you book and verse, but
Yeah,
I recall watching a video about this, and it's also, it's been a lot of talk about, like, as if it's the flavor of the El Paso one, where it's a white identitarian shooting people.
If you want to know, a mass shooting, as defined by Wikipedia, is an incident involving multiple victims of firearm-related violence. There's no widely accepted definition, but it's normally understood to exclude mass killings as a result of terrorism.
So multiple meaning more than one.
Yeah,
Yep, apparently.
So I suppose.
Well, then of course, because
drive-by.
Right. That would be a mass shooting.
Mm-hmm. But it's offered as if it's 215 El Paso.
Yeah.
KKK,
or
white supremacist shootings, yes.
Right. Oh, man. Maybe we don't have time today, but there's a really good video on this subject by Matt Christensen, if you're familiar with that YouTuber.
Not.
Yep, he's a good one.
Anyway, I
save it for
interrupted.
another
You were
day.
on another question.
Oh, this is good.
I was?
Yeah,
I don't
you
remember
were.
where we came from.
I forgot.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all good.
Crocodile tears or no? Fake tears? Fake crying?
I don't know, man.
I'm not a huge crier. Like, maybe when I'm frustrated is when I cry most often. I don't cry at funerals, really. I don't cry at movies. I didn't cry at our friend's wedding when everyone else was crying. So
I made the whole audience cry.
It's hard for me to. I mean, I know people who are criers, but it's like an instant reaction like that just from imagining a scenario where your kids might get hurt. Like, I don't know, but maybe it's just because I'm not that way.
Good point.
I bet I can make you cry, Laura. We'll bring up the ending scene to Homeward Bound.
Oh, no.
I've seen Homeward Bound.
If you can get through that with a dry eye, when Shadow comes over, looks like all hope is lost. An old Shadow comes out of the trees.
I've seen it before.
Oh, man.
It didn't make me cry.
I watched it like a week ago, and I was a mess for 45 minutes.
Marley and Me. That's another one.
Yep. Old Marley.
Old Yeller. Why do the teachers subject us to like terrible books like Old Yeller?
I don't know, man. Speak for teachers, Laura. Why is that the case?
I guess I don't know. I've never had to read Old Yeller before.
Well, it's a book about this kid who like grows up on a farm with his beloved
Well, I've
Labrador.
seen the movie.
Yeah, and shoots it in the end.
Yeah, Yeller gets rabies, I think.
I suppose maybe it's a teachable moment, and we're always looking for opportunities
To shoot your own animals?
Yep.
Speaking of gun violence.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or animal violence, on that matter.
Yeah. How many dogs die per year in shootings?
Yeah, Andrew.
And yeah, right.
Well, what about just cows for your steak? Or the milk you drink, because that hurts the animal, apparently, is the argument for some people. Which...
Yeah, hooking the hoses up.
I mean, my dad had dairy farms, and I helped him milk dairy farms when I was younger. I never once heard a cow yell out in pain when they were being milked.
Well, yeah, you had to go out to the barn at 5
Yeah.
a.m. and milk the teat a little bit, didn't
Well,
you,
yeah.
Laura?
I did.
Churning lots of butter.
I never churned butter. I
Raise
just...
a barn on Monday. Soon we'll raise a nutter. We saw Weird Al a week or two ago in Cedar Rapids.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, he's still kicking, doing his thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
He's on tour with a 42-piece orchestra or something like that.
Of course he is.
Yep.
It's insane.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he's playing like all deep tracks. It's like
Oh,
none
nice.
of the hits. It's just obscure Weird Al songs.
Him in his accordion box with his drumsticks. Like, that's how he started out.
He never played the accordion, though. I don't recall on that.
Yeah, he didn't do a polka song. Did none of the Michael Jackson parodies. Did a few of sort of recent minor hits, I would say, like Word Crimes and.
That's a good one.
He
Yoda,
busted out
the Star
Amish
Wars
Paradise.
stuff, yeah.
Oh, good.
And he did Amish Paradise, yeah.
I'm always partial to the white and nerdy.
Not to spoil it for anyone who might be watching going to a Weird Al concert
Yeah,
on
I
his
don't know.
current
That's like
tour.
the third time I've seen Weird Al.
Wow.
It's a lot of Weird Al.
It doesn't surprise me, though.
Yeah. Yep. Tony too and I went in high school.
Good.
Went to Mankato. And that was the same, like either that day or the day before. Both of Weird Al's parents died in this freak carbon monoxide
Holy cow.
accident, and he still went ahead with the show anyways. He's just like,
courage.
"This one's for you, Mom and Dad." And then he goes through the show and we like find out the next day or something that Weird Al's parents died. Like,
Jeez.
my God, dude, you're a robot.
And he didn't have crocodile tears?
He didn't cry. Yeah, maybe it's because he had $1,000 a month.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You still have his perm?
Yeah, it's like
Curly hair?
his hair's longer now.
Yeah,
so.
it's
Yeah, good.
not as poofy.
Yeah.
He might have had it gelled.
Yeah. Well, had enough for today, everybody?
Wow, I think we could keep going, but for our audience sake, we
Yeah,
better
I suppose.
keep it to 90
We'll
minutes.
save that. Remind me to bring up that Matt Christensen video.
Yeah, and
next
Jessica
time around.
Yaniv.
And Jessica Yaniv, yeah.
That's a good second half of show.
We can maybe hit some of that next time. Hopefully we'll do a show next week.
Yeah, I would be for that.
Okay. All righty.
All this stuff building up, it's very cleansing to get
Yeah,
out.
it is. I feel like a weight
You
off
feel
my
better?
shoulders.
I feel
do,
better.
Yep. All right. Thanks for tuning in, nobody.
Adios, no one.